Hello, everyone. I'm back. I had a good sleep. The title is An Intelligence Worth Inspection and Introspection. And I would like to speak about the ultimate. The ultimate, not ideal, but the ultimate position of human intelligence as we wonder about it. There is a quote by J.R.R. Tolkien. He says, "Not all those who wander are lost." You know, J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of The Lord of the Rings, evidently he was 14 years old. He was sitting under a table in the UK where the city was being bombed, and it was there where his inner realm saw Middle Earth. And I feel this is something interesting about the human design, where just like the cornered animal psychology, when our outer realms can't move, our inner realms get up from their seat. If we were to look at these two words, inspection and introspection, I think it's important to notice the difference. In inspection, it means to look at someone or something closely, typically to assess their condition or to discover any shortcomings. So inspection is like you're seeing something outside of yourself. Introspection is you seeing what is within you, the contents of your mind, the state of your attention, the nature of the day, the density of the day, the nature of the night, the density of the day. To introspect, examine one's own thoughts or feelings. And so we inspect and introspect our realm to dictate intelligence and discover boundaries to it. What knowledge is never knowing something. Knowing more than before, I would say. To want to know the ultimate, one has to think of a container that can hold all this knowledge. That means if my brain was the size of the cosmos, then yes, solipsism is easy. To be a solipsist then. I remember that in 2014, when I started giving these talks, it was me, my outer realm, and my inner realms. The three modes of reality journeying, you know. There is times where I feel none of us are an individual being. I feel we are three collective beings simultaneously being in symbiosis. It's like Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva are playing a triangular game. And so in every moment we find either things are maintained, either things are created, or things are destroyed. It's the same with dialogue and conversation as well among people. That the way you speak suggests the destruction of the future of that conversation. When the person is younger, they don't have. Because they don't have, they want a lot, you know? only to realize in the middle of getting what they want, it wasn't what they wanted. And that's the nature of the mind. It can't touch ultimate perfection and it cannot touch ultimate imperfection, or it will not be human. There was this poet named Sadi in his poetry, this Persian poet from like, I don't know, 800 years ago or something, 700 years ago. Sadi says, if you don't feel pain as a human being from the pain of your species, if you lack empathy, you're not human. Isn't that a mind-boggling idea that a human being can look human? You could look like a human being, but you could totally behave like you're not from this planet. you know? And so it's kind of like learning to cherish the value of the light in our eyes that allows the human archetype to transition gracefully. It is right now the ideology of our humanhood is a bunker. It is a linguistic bunker, and when we step out of these linguistic bunkers, the rawness of the world is there and unexplainable. What does that mean? That means I'll give an example. Pretty much throughout these years that I've been giving these talks, let me tell you how my inner realm karma has been. And it's not something that I could voice in one moment, but I could tell you that what has tended like what happens when you speak a lot is you start hearing yourself. When you start hearing yourself, let's say the first maybe 500 talks, I was really listening to my own self when I was giving the talk, as I was giving the talk. But it's reached a point now where the silence has more to say than words. And it's a strange time. I don't know. Sometimes I feel I feel like I don't know, playfully I'm saying this, of course. I feel I've been born 400 years too soon. And then there's times I feel I've been alive too long. And when I look at the past, life is a burden. When I look at the future, it's a responsibility. And only in the present is where we cannot care for anything and strangely feel some sort of freedom from suffering, but it's not freedom. It's just like a person who has taken their head out of the water, or a human being in the trenches of the space-time continuum just waiting. It is like shattering sometimes when you wake. To fearlessly pick up the pieces and the fragments of the soul and march with the effortless mind. I would say the ultimate, through at least what I've been exposed to through Taoism, is the effortless. That means those who don't realize that there is an effortless way you're being before you do anything, most likely many of the things that you do, you're not conscious before doing it. Me personally, when I sometimes in my life I've gotten intoxicated, that it's in those moments where I notice the morality loosen, because like the brain has less of a care and tolerance to keep things the same. It's like a person who's bored doesn't want to be in the same room, so they technically don't care about it. That's the bad thing about boredom. That it's like you're treating the outer realms like your inner realms, so you start playing with it, actually not from the outer realms. You know, there's moments where I feel I understand people, and there's moments where I feel I never could. I am sitting in a corner of this universe, staring at the shadow of the implication of my mind in every form. You know, I don't know, as a kid I tried staring at the sun, and all I saw was just the outline of the sphere for an instant. And I feel that is kind of the truth. It is not dual, so it's like a non-dual blinding light. It is how the world knows itself before the language in your mind was born. Therefore, the ultimate cannot be new. That's the whole point. If in our past we were multidimensionally free, there is no novelty. If in the future we will be multidimensionally free, there is still no novelty. Because that's the point, you know? Last night I felt so suddenly tired. I don't know what it was. I think it's like I had let certain thoughts into the space of my mind, and I remember it's like when I slept last night, it was just heavy. It was as if like my body felt like the weight of a giant metal ship on land. Like it was heavy. It was a very heavy. The sleep wasn't heavy, but like when I was about to fall asleep, I felt literally my body was like a giant boulder on a mountain. Do you know what I mean? It felt like after the work is done, so is the work of the mind, separation with the world. I feel it's not even a time-based thing. In regards to the human language, it's based on time. But beyond that, beyond our words, the world turns in many ways. Sorry, guys, give me a second. The sun's hitting my eye. I gotta do something here. Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, guys, I encourage um, the people in the chat section to cultivate patience, like in Skyrim. You know how the person character in the video game can sit there and just cultivate patience like a video game on pause, guys. You know, there's something about uh, I don't know how to say it, but the language that the mind generates, that if you somehow could be your own surveillance throughout the day as intelligence, you would notice the language you're using. You know, many people use language to express, but they're not conscious of what they're doing, you know? And the more emotional the situation is, the more the language is treated like reality, you know? There's been moments I've experienced it from both sides. Anger, both outside and on the inside, and the anger, it's like when someone is angry, they're possessed, but they're not possessed by some force. They are possessed by their past. It's a multidimensional event in the inner realms. That means it's like anytime I compare this sense of self in the present to any sense of self, whether it's me wondering about who I will be in the future, where I'm looking at my own gravestone in the future, or if I am looking back at the doctor who slapped me when I was born, you know, so the child can breathe, I mean, you know. So that's my point, that when we compare self to self, emotions between the worlds can occur. But when there is only a self in a world, there is nothing that can be done literally in a state of being. So I would say pretty much in this episode, I am attempting to wonder that if we actually inspected and even went within and went through a process of introspection of our own intelligence, how do we conclude a sort of ultimate? You know, you see many people speak about hierarchies. Society is all about hierarchies, you know? And then hierarchy is simply a spectrum of possibility. Or certain, to some parts of the hierarchy, certain parts of the hierarchy are impossible, but all of them are spectrums. They are just like how the one light beam went through the prism and it became, in different light beams, it became the color spectrum. It's like one moment of existence is experience, is like experience, like a light is going through language and becoming into a spectrum. What I'm trying to say is that if we had a hierarchy, if we were like up and down, you know, we're on a sphere in the middle of nowhere. Technically, there is no up and down. The up and down are our own creation. But like I'm saying, if there was a hierarchy and not just like a social hierarchy, people are disturbed from social hierarchies, but what if there was a sort of multidimensional hierarchy to the nature of the cosmos? What if we are like a child in a cradle and we can't see beyond the cradle of our sensory perception? What I'm trying to say is that at some point in a hierarchical system, there's going to be an ultimate point. What the people of the time believe the ultimate is, the most important position in the hierarchy, and how they even interpret the hierarchy suggests what they will run after in their day, you know? But there are moments in life where life can't be hidden to itself too. I've experienced, somebody mentioned Carl Jung in the chat section, you know. Carl Jung, he treated it as if we have a conscious mind, and then there's the unconscious, the individual unconscious, and the collective unconscious. Do you know? So what that means is after you have learned everything you don't know, then you must go and learn everything your species doesn't know. So what I'm trying to say is I've had moments where these hierarchies, they're also in the inner realms, all law and meaning, and like if you can discriminate between what is subjective and what is objective, it makes life supremely easier. What does that mean? That means imagine person A and person B, they're in an argument, okay? They're in a park and they're in an argument, person A and person B. Person B says some very cruel and vicious things. And person A is there, and person A is applying this inner realm, outer realm analysis. And what does the person A do? Person A says, okay, so let me get this straight. This person is just physically standing in front of me. They are shouting. They are saying unnecessary words. They are whatever, all this stuff, you know? They don't know who you are, but they're commenting. And all this is going on. And suddenly you see, as long as the person is not physically fighting you, there isn't a issue of self-defense, you know, then there is nothing to get hurt by. All of it is subjective, is momentary existence. We are just like these spheres of attention that when we go towards something, it's alive then. Do you know? It's like people don't realize there is a life in front of your eyes and there's a life behind it. The life behind it is the context to what this means, and the life in front of it is the concept. The concept is an object, the context is a subject, the witness is beyond both. And that's the power of the witness, that when a human being can surpass their self-conceived limitation, they can also experience their self-conceived limitlessness. That's the gift of the inner realms, where our species doesn't know how to use. I mean, some people do, but our species hasn't realized the mind that it is given, the advancement, the authorization into subtler realms that we have. You know, it's like looking at words and realizing, oh my God, they're just words. And what is the meaning? The Buddha told us the nature of objects is empty. What does that mean? That means two people look at the same picture. You think both of them have the same impression? No. Why? Because their eyes are on different roads. And so it's like the person has to care about the road of their eyes while simultaneously realizing the meaning of life is not a story. It is participation with the living event as it is. It's being animate while you can. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj, recently I've been saying this quote often, he says, diversity without separateness is the ultimate the mind can touch. That the ultimate individual conscious position is that the individuality is there, but we are conscious of the movement of the whole system. We are aware of the human project in the void cosmos. As far as I'm concerned, when I say advanced communicators, deep down in my heart, I feel like it's a project management thing. This is why the term comes down inevitably to piloting, where we're no longer in a world that we require to believe or disbelieve or find truth to put it on a wall or a trophy shelf, you know. We have reached a time in history where we have to notice the simple power of our breath in an instant and the authorization and opportunity that provides. It's piloting. No longer people need to believe, they need to become master thought wielders. You know, we have to master thought. It's about time we notice we're not thought. A person thinking they're a thought is like a swordsman thinking he is his sword. Do you know? You have missed the point of battle if you get obsessed with the sword. That means imagine a warrior in a battlefield. That warrior is like, my sword is so cool, you know, and like suddenly somebody attacks the warrior from behind because that warrior has his attention was on his weapon, on what he had, not what was in the world. You know, for me, I chose this picture because it was like a glimpse of the world souls meeting the world soul. Some people here on this planet are privileged. And this was something where I wasn't familiar. I was aware that there was something else aside from the human face, but I couldn't say what it was. Later on, I realized way before the secularism of society, the obsession with materiality, there was a bit of wondering of how else the mind could move beyond the first way it moved. You know, that means if I was really to judge the human being, I would say the past cannot define us. Do you know what that means? That means schools have nothing to teach. It's not that they have nothing to teach. I mean, information has its own landscapes of observation and value. But I'm saying it's not the point of education has been forgotten. Educational systems are actually snake oil salesmen. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I am not dishonoring it. Just the fact that we have universities, and back in the day there was nowhere where you could even keep books around. There wasn't even libraries. I honor how far the species has come, but I feel dishonored by how little the educational system sees its own reform. As if it's like someone with muddy shoes walking in the halls in the palace of Gaia, not realizing that only the highest quality work deserves to be shared here. You know? That means it's kind of like there's two kinds of failure. There is failing to the world, and there's failing to the self and the inner worlds. And that I could tell you, there's a kind of rejected feeling from the karma of the outer realms. That's okay. Like that's not that bad. Do you know? But the rejection from the inner realms is heavy. And what the rejection from the inner realms is kind of like you were natural, then you forgot. It's a forgetfulness. You know, I think the only sin committed on this planet is amnesia of the truth. That man, when he deviated from the universal order, could only see universal chaos. This world is so much bigger than our desires, and yet our desires move us. So if we don't desire the ultimatum, the world, we will never see it. That means, you know what's more scary than, dying? Being alive and not realizing you're alive. That's like being dead before you can even die. That you did not even permit the new self to enter your mind. You know, there was a time where I looked in the mirror and my eyes were teary. And it was like instantly I shouted at myself in the mirror, "How dare you?" And it was just like a moment where I was just with myself and I realized that the mind is breathing through communication. You know, that means if the mind doesn't move, it denies its own purpose to itself. So you can say introspection is internal exploration, movement, and inspection is external exploration and movement. And so we have to inspect the environment. Think of like your intelligence, like we people don't realize. We used to be living in the jungles. We have a hypersensitivity. That means if aliens came and we were under attack, the only backup system we have after our human civility hasn't worked is just our vicious animalhood. Do you know we become animals at the end? Can you imagine? Like it's now we have a rare opportunity to build something more than an animal can wish for. That means we might have been an evolutionary animal, but now it is the era of the galactic mind. Where instead of us going to the future, we brought the future here. I would like to read a poem from this Sufi poet named Attar of Nishapur. And Attar, I'm just going to read the poem for you, and you will see how far the soul has roared on this earth. So, guys, Attar, this poet says, the home we seek is in eternity. The truth we seek is like a shoreless sea, of which your paradise is but a drop. This ocean can be yours. Why should you stop? Beguiled by dreams of evanescent dew, the secrets of the sun are yours. But you content yourself with motes trapped in its beams. Turn to what truly lives, reject what seems. Which matters more, the body or the soul? Be whole, W-H-O-L-E, be whole. Desire and journey to the whole with a capital W. That's it. We are the fragments of the ultimate. We are like a shattered mirror now rebuilding itself. So this is man's effort. I think the Tower of Babylon story is a suggestion. It comes to us from Christian wisdom that there was all human beings on the planet were united under one language, one universal language. We haven't even gotten there yet, you know. But back in the day, all human beings were united under one language, and they started building pretty much a tower to the gods, right? Somebody's like, guys, we're gonna build. Pretty much the idea was to build a tower to the gods so all human beings can access the state of the gods. And as all human beings united under one language built this tower, the gods see this. One of the gods wants to throw lightning. The other god's like, hold up, man. There's a classier way to do this. And the God says that he suddenly does something, that all human beings speak different languages. When human beings speak different languages, they can't build the tower to the ultimate. And so this is Mr. Within's strategy. It does make sense. We can't build a tower. We should build a mirror. Imagine human beings started building a giant mirror back in the day, and all the gods were like, what are human beings doing? What is this they're doing? The gods couldn't understand, but human beings, they decided to create a mirror that could remind the gods of why they were being gods. That how dare you wear the crown when you haven't seen the kingdom first? It's like a battle. It's ideologically, when it comes to the linguistic simulation. So imagine it was the Tower of Babylon and it's the mirror of Gaia now, where man is no longer fighting God, is no longer fighting language, fighting the concept of God. Let me tell you what it is. It's literally like how there was a Greek emperor who had beef with Poseidon and the god of the oceans, the god of water, the element of water. And so Poseidon, this king was like, how dare Poseidon make it rain on my daughter's wedding day? Imagine a godfather personality like Greek emperor who has beef with Poseidon. Okay. And so what does this emperor do? Who gets his strongest warriors and all his armies, and he commands them to go and start fighting the ocean. So you see a bunch of soldiers with swords just hitting the ocean, trying to like dishonor Poseidon. Do you know? That means you can attempt to fight a god, but you're just punching your world. You're punching the void. It's as if like there is more than object-based event occurring here. The subject-based event and the wonder and curiosity of the free will, it's like now we have reached a time where we saw what the body was, we saw what the mind was, or we felt what the mind was. And now we are to be. It is like, let me tell you what's been happening. It's like billions of years of evolution just to get the body ready, again another phase of evolution to get the mind ready. And the body and the mind are like cleaning the house, for, in some sense, the soul to come in. So I feel what's happening is that we are to ourselves individual, but to the world we are not separate from it. That the person may even be an orphan on this planet, but the planet is like we're all children of the existence. I remember I gave a talk called The Orphans of Existence. I thought how many orphan kids, after seeing Slumdog Millionaire, I'm like, holy shit. Attar says, let love lead your soul. Make it a place to retire to, a kind of monastery cave, a retreat for the deepest core of your being. Attar says this was no friendship. To forsake your friend, to promise your support and at the end abandon him, this was sheer treachery. Friend follows friend to hell and blasphemy. When sorrow comes, one's true friends are found. In times of joy, 10,000 gather round. That's the thing. I think what he's meaning by the friend is the planet. The universal condition is the friend. And if we abandon the friend, it's like the human being that hasn't cared for the world is dead before alive. You know, it's wondrous, really. I remember I saw this comedian talk about Louis something, and this comedian, he spoke about how back in the day just being a native was very easy. You know, it was a simple life. Like right now, it's way more complex processing. It's way more complex mind games than simple passive flow of the body. Do you know? That means Taoism actually is just a benchmark. So think of this. Um, think of language as being a dream inside a dream that is being experienced from a place that can't be a dream. So we are awake in the dream. That means we're not asleep. That means you can't, an illusion is not sleep. We have thought that there's a chance, 1 billionth in a chance that this realm is a simulation. Simulation theory pretty much is suggesting that if you see the evolution of, for example, video games, you see the video games are becoming way more real, and it's this thought that in the future video games are going to become so real, and imagine even nanotechnology becomes so real that we can't tell a robotic human-looking being from a humanoid robot from an actual human being. So it pretty much means there will come a point where the artificial and the natural and the unnatural will be inseparable. We haven't gotten that. We are so blessed in a strange way to be alive now. Right now, trees are not in the history books yet. Climb a tree while you can. Because the effort of man defining himself has meant, like, the more our egos have power, the less we see we are a part of the world. The more you feel you're special, the less you're a part of a team. But it is true also that there's sometimes certain roles. That means certain things, like there was for me, there was no like, even though there's so many human beings with names and faces and certain influential efforts, but these people are not people. They are moments. They are multidimensional magnificence. There was no Lao Tzu. There was no Confucius. And perhaps when you go within, you will realize there is no Mr. Within. Your eyes are the true prize. They are the gift. So that inseparability of the personal and the impersonal, of the individual and the collective, the micro and the macro, whether it's cosmic or not. Pretty much we are a breathing factor, finally, after transcending from beyond the battlefields of language, realizing that the perfection we seek is eternal access. We want to be close to intelligence's sphere. We want to be our eyes, but our eyes are already being. You know, people think of the higher self. They think of, like, there was a time I laughed. I'm like, this idea, people don't realize this. There's two kind of approaches. There are those who are fascinated, if life is a soul, could we be a soul? Oh my God. You know, like, there's that kind that kind of like fascination. Then there's those who, they don't doubt the soul, they're just realizing everything has a soul. It's like, wait a minute. If I'm from the earth, that means the earth has a soul. That means the universe has a soul. That means it's all like an endless regression of soul, 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 soul. It's so soulful, guys, infinitely. They're like, what was the infinite like? Soulful, man. It was very soulful. Full of souls, you know? So what I'm saying is, like, it's just how far, how much, it's like every person has a different comfort. Some are comfort to be selfless and govern themselves. Some are comfortable governing their sense of self selflessly. Some are not. Some, it's like they can't be space because the matter needs to finish its motives first. You know, it really depends. I would tell you honestly, me as a being, because it's so unpredictable, the outer realms, I have hope in the outer realms, but I have certainty in my inner realms. Outer realms, you can just hope for the best. You're like, all right. It's like, imagine you as a being, as a pilot, transitioning out of this plane. You're like landing your attention outside, you know, lifting off into the unknown. So imagine, before the pilot takes his last breath and ejects out of this plane of existence, the pilot just looks at the plane of existence, and just one last look. And it's like, the now is a place where eternity can no longer make mistakes. We are unknown temporary analysis. That's what we are. If we identify the visible, the objective, and the known as temporary, the unknown is the only place the eternal has to stay in. You know, it's the last resort of the eternal being, that when it recognizes a plague of belief, when the unknown linguistic data processor of our, that is our mind, becomes our ally, that is the victory. When there is a greater sign towards efficiency than inefficiency, that's when an advanced civilization is gifted. It's always like this. It's like there, because man, because it's in the, you can say it's in the karma of just species on, it doesn't matter if it's on our planet or any other planet. In all civilized, like, you can say different civilizations, playfully I'm saying this, imagine in different civilizations, all civilization species get to a point where they are given an unknown gift. That means we are just, everything we are doing is just preparing our hands to receive the future. And that unknown gift is different for civilizations. It's pretty much, it's the cool thing of, you know how like a family, in a family the parent doesn't buy the same toy for like 8 different kids, like, you know what I mean? The parent buys different toys in accordance to the realities of each child, right? So when a civilization gets to a certain important event, collective event, that's when the collective event gifts itself, and its gift is universal memory. And what that universal memory means, that if the person has an ability to be out of body of their thought, you go out of body, but not like you're physically in your body sitting like wherever, but like you're going out of body of your thought. You're noticing the idea of yourself. You are noticing you're noticing it, you know? And as synchronicity guides the glitch, the liberating glitch of the moment. Just like a video game, when there's a glitch, instantly in that glitch you know that you're entertaining an illusion. The moment you notice a glitch in your realm, you know it's not, there's more to it. So to the mind, there is no location. Technically, everything is everything. To the body, there is relationships. So if we choose to navigate our conscious mind through individualism, that has a certain outcome, and through collectivism, which would mean there is so much peace, people are no longer fighting. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a species that didn't evolve violently? Imagine one day all the animals were like, yo, let's work together. All the species. Imagine all the species on this planet became conscious at the same time as the ape chimp did, in the same way, and suddenly all the species decided. They just decided that, all right, you know, we're going to have for the first time an interspecies, interplanetary species movement towards an interstellar, uh, even like it would be incredible. Right now, it's like we have the first task. The first task is just handle ourselves as human beings. Then we become, once we have like confidence in our own species, then it becomes easier to make contact properly. You know, that means we don't want to make contact and be suddenly embarrassed. It's like you don't want to sit naked at the business table. You know what I mean? It's like the person's sitting at the business table, but they're not wearing pants. It's like they are strangely being professional, but never at all. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where if we can find our true eyes before language does, we were free before we were born. We are free in an unborn way. I feel that's just the geometry of the mind leads it that way. Guys, the thing from Attar where he was saying like about friendship, that whole idea was simply, he was saying like when you realize you're a collective being, you don't have an individual desire for the progression. So it's strange where we have to, for now at least, until we update the system, right now that it's like win-lose. The aim is to get it to win-win, where every person's individual way of life and collective way of life, individual way of life is a victory for the collective way of life. So I don't know, when a person observes their intelligence, they notice the whole world. When they notice the whole world, they notice where language comes from. When they notice where language comes from, the language becomes void. When the language becomes void, the experiencer remains. When the experiencer remains, nature moves as it is. I mean, ultimately, Sri Ramana Maharshi kind of said this. He said, first the I am myself comes. You think you're yourself at first. He says the I am myself comes. Then the I am myself leaves. Then the I am all comes. Then the I am all leaves. Then the I am comes. You're no longer yourself, you're no longer everyone, even from the individual mind projection to the collective mind projection, you move beyond those. And then you are the I am comes, as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says. He says the I am comes, then he says the I am leaves. And when the I am leaves, nature is. Nature is. Those two words are the glitch in the system of our languages trying to contain truth, crowning themselves as belief systems, crowning themselves as kings of a changing world. It's beyond language we are free. I have come to a firm conclusion. Pretty much I would say there is two types of people on this planet. Those that see possibility and those that don't. And those that see possibility, all they can do in a binary way is just press the button of effort. You just you max out your effort to see. And that furthers the civilization's vision. For advancement without advanced vision, that means an advanced civilization means in our mind it is already there. We just have to put the pieces together. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I will be on Discord for those interested for a little while, for if anybody has questions or whatnot. Much blessings and else.